Welcome back to another episode of Meet Cute, where we explore the stories of extraordinary people with radical meat-based beliefs. I'm your host, Alex Rhodes. On today's episode, we have Brandon Miller. We, in this episode, go into the wrong things he did to try to lose weight, his life before the carnivore diet, how carnivore made him feel better, the struggles and experiences that he had, his plans on sticking to carnivore or alternatively using it with animal-based, his keto carnivore journey, thoughts on bodybuilding, body composition differences, and advice on doing a meat-based diet. We'll start with, so you come from a really significant weight loss transformation, as we all know. So my question is really, what inspired you to change? You know, was it health issues, insecurity, weight loss in general?
No, it was no doubt Kobe Bryant. I had no doubt in my mind. I'd never tried to lose weight before he passed away. The day he passed away is when I started my whole journey. So I was always in high school, always the fattest kid in the school, was always the fat kid, the biggest kid. I got up to 260 pounds, which at my height, I'm around 5'11", 6 foot. So that's, it's a lot for me. It's, almost 100 pounds heavier than I should be. So as soon as he passed away, nothing hit me harder mentally that said, you know what, if he died tomorrow and he was so rich and successful and famous, he had so many friends and he was in such good shape, I'm in horrible shape. I'm not living a quality life like he did. What if I die tomorrow? And then I started living every day since then. I haven't missed a workout since then, to be honest with you. I have rest days on Sunday, but other than that, and same thing with diet is whatever diet I've been on since then, I have stuck to it religiously. So that has never changed. So he was 100% my biggest motivator. We can go into diets and what I've tried in the past, because some things that I did, I totally regret as soon as I started. But the main thing is I wouldn't have stuck to anything if he wouldn't have passed away. So it was definitely a huge turning point in my life.
Yeah, that's awesome. Before this obviously life-changing moment for you, did you ever have or encounter a time when you really felt like you just realized you were different? You were like, I am overweight and I do struggle with this, and at what age do you feel like that happened?
I was always overweight. I mean, since I was probably 5 or 6 years old, I was always somewhat of a degree overweight. And then in my younger childhood days, I guess it really didn't matter too much. It didn't affect me. But as I go older and, everybody was talking to girls and everybody was, having girlfriends and everyone had these big friends groups. And I wasn't just, you're not treated the same way, I have to say, when you're overweight. If you walk into a gym and you're in amazing shape, people will come up and talk to you. People will talk to you differently. If you walk down a school aisle, people will talk to you differently. So I always had somewhat of a friend group, but it was never, I'm pretty sure the friend group would have been way different if I was in better shape. And I'm pretty sure I would have got treated way differently if I was in better shape. As I've seen what's happened as my face got thinner and my body looked better. And people treat you different. It's a sad world, but that's the reality.
Yeah, no. And I would love to play into that more because I've definitely experienced that in the past. There was a time somebody told me like I had a pretty face, but a terrible body. And I remember just thinking in that moment, you are treated so differently. And, how did that affect you growing up? How did that affect your self-esteem?
Oh yeah. When you're that big, I mean, to be honest with you, I never thought I would lose any weight. I thought it was just impossible for me to get abs. I was like, the whole idea of abs, it's just something people get in a magazine. It's not, you're not supposed to see your abs. But, I never believed in myself until that turning point in my life in 2020. And, your self-esteem is on the floor. It always is on the floor. When you're the biggest kid like that, you don't feel good. And when you eat stuff like that, you don't feel good. So everything is in the wrong direction, physically and mentally, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So you said something about belief. I love this thought just because I think belief is such an incredible tool for people to harness. Do you remember a time or the time that you started cultivating what I would call like true belief in yourself, where you woke up every morning and you believed that you were the person that you thought you deserved to be?
It really was a few months after I started my journey. So, I mean, getting into the summer of 2020 when a lot of the weight had come off, and I'm like, wow, I'm actually doing this. And like, then the compliments started flowing in. All my friends were like, wow, you look so different already. Because I was down at that point, like 50 or 75 pounds. I was down quite a lot. I wasn't finished, but I was like I already know where I'm going to be. Like at this point, I strongly believe that I will no doubt hit my goal, and I did. Eventually, it took me about 8 months to lose 100 pounds, but halfway through, I was like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, and I'm going to reach my goal no matter what it takes. Even though I did do that the wrong way, which we can get into as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, by the wrong way, I mean, I think we all do it the wrong way the first time around. So yeah, go ahead and elaborate. What was the wrong way for you?
So, I, of course, like any other kid who wanted to lose weight, I didn't have a dietitian. I didn't have a nutritionist. My mom tried to get me to go to like Jenny Craig and Weight Watchers and all that stuff. And, I never liked it. I never listened to what they had to say. And I'm glad, because that's definitely the wrong alley that you can go down. But then I search online and I'm like, the first thing I find is a bunch of YouTubers, and they're like, to lose weight, all you have to do is create an energy deficit or a caloric deficit. And I think everybody hears that word all the time. And they're like, that's it. That's the only way for you to lose fat. That's it. So my being was, well, let's just create a huge caloric deficit as big as possible, and I'll lose a ton of weight really fast. I didn't know anything. So I ended up running 9 to 10 miles a day the entire summer. Which is a lot. I mean, I was spending over 3 hours a day. There was a football field right behind my house. So I would walk to the football field in the morning, spend 3 hours on a run. After my run, I would eat my one meal a day, which OMAD, I didn't know what that was at the time, but I did it. And I did it wrong as well. I ate whatever I wanted that one meal. I didn't prioritize protein or anything like that. So what ended up happening was I felt horrible. I felt awful. And I thought you just had to feel this way when you're losing weight. Like it's a normal feeling to feel like drained and tired because, hey, weight's coming off my body. I'm losing energy, so I might as well lose physical energy, mental energy, excuse me. So ran a ton, ate one meal a day, whatever I wanted, and it flew off of me because all I knew was calories in, calories out. What happened was after the 8 months, I was a skeleton. I had no muscle on my body. It was all skinny fat. I mean, I got to the weight I wanted. I was 160. From 260, I lost 100 pounds, and everybody came up to me and was like, wow, you're in so much better shape. You look great. What happened? Like, you must feel so good. And I tell them straight up, I'm like, I felt better when I was fat. Like, I never felt worse in my life. Like, I felt satiated. I felt full. Every night I was going to bed hungry. And I thought that's another thing that's normal with weight loss. And it really wasn't. So to answer that, I never felt as bad as I did in my life. As soon as I lost the weight, I did it the wrong way.
Yeah. No, I think we all, fall into the trap of what is this societal expectation for weight loss. I mean, I know that in our space, we see a lot of people debunking these myths, but it's like, we definitely hit diet culture first. What's the first thing that pops into Google when you're like, I want to lose weight?
That's it. That's it.
But so when was it that, okay, so you obviously felt like trash. When was it that you started? You're like, absolutely.
I literally could not sleep. I mean, when I was sleeping, I was tossing and turning the whole night for literally the whole 8 months. Like no rest. I didn't cheat once, which was really crazy. Like I was so disciplined mentally. I never deviated from the one meal a day of eating whatever I want. I was starving though. Every time I had the worst sugar cravings because all I ate was a ton of carbohydrates for my one meal a day. So of course, I would spike insulin very high that one meal a day, and the rest of the day, I would want sugar all day long. I'd want something. But when did I finally start to feel good? When I found out about keto. So my grandparents did a ketogenic diet, and they lost a lot of weight, and around the same time I did. And a few months later, I say, well, how did you lose all that weight? You were just in a caloric deficit, right? You must have felt really bad. And they're like, no, we actually felt good the whole time. And I'm like, wait, you slept well? And they're like, yeah, we slept better than we did before when we added more fats. And I'm like, hold on. And then all of these sort of things start to come to mind, like, hey, you need carbs for energy. you have to have carbs. You can't live without any carbohydrates, or on a low carb diet, it's not healthy. Red meat's not healthy. All of these things that I was believing in, I look at them and they look in good shape and they lost weight, but they felt good. And I was so confused. I'm like, you didn't feel any hunger cravings at all? And they're like, no. And then I'm like, you didn't count your calories at all? And you didn't lower your calories at all? They're like, we just ate the right foods until we were full. And I'm like, how could this be? So I played around with it. I took my macros, basically what I was starving myself on, whatever it was at the time, probably 1,700 calories a day for me. And I'm a very active male, so that's very, very low. I took that and I was doing one meal a day. Then I started to do 2 meals a day and I did a keto style. And I saw what happened. Immediately, when I upped the fats to animal fats and I lowered my carbohydrates, I felt way better. I felt like way better. I had more energy. I wasn't taking naps all day anymore. I was sleeping consistently. My brain fog went away. There was endless benefits to a higher fat, low carb diet. And I was like, wow, I feel really good eating this way and I'm maintaining my weight. I'm eating the same calories because at that time I was afraid still to not count calories because I thought I would just bounce back, which I would have if I ate a shitload of carbohydrates like I was doing before. But since when I went keto, I didn't realize how satiated I actually was. And I felt full throughout the day on such a small amount of calories. Still not enough food, but way better, way better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Did you lift at all throughout that period
So
of?
yeah, so I started, unfortunately, that's the other thing I regret is I didn't lift at all, which honestly, it's not the big deal because I didn't eat enough protein anyway to lift. So it wouldn't have really gone to anything. So I started lifting as soon as I found out about keto and my uncle taught me a little bit. And then eventually I joined a gym. I joined Planet Fitness, what everybody really starts at. And I liked it. I got into lifting a lot throughout the next, 6 months I did keto. And then my body shape started to change with keto and lifting and finally having a protein filled diet. So then I learned about counting my protein into my macronutrients and getting 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, still counting calories, still doing all this stuff that inflamed my gut. I was still eating sugar and seed oils, but I upped my calories a little bit. I didn't gain any weight and I started putting on muscle. I started finally seeing some changes in my physique that went from skinny fat to somewhat muscular. And with lifting, I just kept doing it because I enjoyed it a hell of a lot more than running. And when I saw that running, you might lose your muscle if you run as much as I did, I totally stopped running. I was like, all right, maybe I'll just lift and see what happens. I'll keep the same amount of calories and still starve myself, but I lifted. So that's what I did for a while. For the next 6 months, I got really into it up until the first year. And I actually ended up working at that Planet Fitness and I wanted the membership so bad, I just started working there. And that was the first sort of gym job that I got. And eventually I wanted to be a trainer. I got so into what lifting could do with my physique, I wanted to help other people's physiques. Still at the time, I knew a little bit about keto. I didn't know about carnivore yet. But because I thought everybody needed the vegetables, I still had IBS, which we didn't even talk about, is definitely one of my biggest struggles before my weight was IBS for sure. I still had stuff like eczema. I still have dandruff, on a keto diet. You're still eating those plants that'll give you that. So nothing was perfect yet. I didn't feel as good as I do today at all. But I got into personal training, I got into lifting, and it changed my physique. And it's so much better than running 9 to 10 miles a day. I have to tell you that. It's a lot less stressful. Let's just say that.
Yeah, you're telling me. I'm not anti-cardio. Of course, I've been through many build phases and cutting phases. And, cardio is just a really natural part of that. But to run 9-10 miles a day, man, I just can't even, that just has to be so hard on your body. There was a point where I'd run 3 or 4 miles a day because I was in sort of the same mindset in high school. And I was like, have to lose the weight, have to keep it off, have to eat 0 calories. But, I can't imagine what that did even to, you seem mentally pretty determined, but, I would say that would even have gotten mentally exhausting towards the end of a solid year.
It was like freaking David Goggins. Like literally that whole summer, I was literally like David Goggins. Like I just pushed through it. Like I thought that, mentally, if you were tired or you were stressed, you just needed to push harder. So that's what I did.
Right.
And I say it to this day, if I had the help of like a health coach or a trainer or a nutritionist or somebody that, knew what they were talking about, and they helped me lose the weight, like I would owe my life to them. So that's why I got into this industry. So we get into a year later, and I'm training now at the Planet Fitness, and I really like it, but they're not paying me very well. I get this offer from LA Fitness, and I've been to LA once, and I thought it was a much nicer gym, so I checked it out, and I really liked LA Fitness. So I started training there for, I believe, the next 6 months to a year. I was at LA Fitness, and I loved that place, and they didn't pay very well either, but they paid better than Planet. So I spent a lot of time there as well. And when I got to LA, that's when I really found out about Carnivore. That's when I started to learn about it. That's when I found Paul Saladino. That's when I found Joe Rogan, all these, Sean Baker, these, big podcast kind of guys that have a lot of meat-based diets. And I was already eating lots of meat and vegetables at the time, but I didn't know what would happen if I took away the vegetables. I always thought it was something that was, you always had to have it. It was necessary. If you didn't take away the vegetables, you were going to die. So until you come to think of it ancestrally and just take a look back at a few million years ago of what we were eating, I never thought to eat an organ in my life. I thought liver was gross, and now I eat raw testicle all the time. So my mind shift definitely changed quite a lot from when I started. But when I found out about these guys and I tried it for a week, my IBS went away, completely gone. I felt so much better. I can't describe how much better I felt since without the vegetables. As soon as I took it away, 1 week, the IBS was gone. I also didn't have any more sugar cravings. I had here and there on keto. It wasn't perfect, but I mean, literally, I don't want anything to do with sugar now. If somebody puts a piece of cake on the table, obviously, I was a binge eater. You don't get that big without, binge eating, or being addicted to sugar. So I won't touch it. I literally have no interest in it. It just doesn't look appealing to me. The only thing I think about every morning when I wake up is a big steak with butter on it. That's all I want. And took out the vegetables, and everything got better. Everything got better. Everything improved. My dandruff was gone. Eczema was gone. Never got a pimple. And then what's it called? The IBS was always my biggest problem. Completely fixed in a week. So crazy stuff. And it brought me to this lifestyle that I live now. So definitely have to thank those guys for sure.
Yeah, no, that's wild. That's wild. Well, that leads me into, I'm just curious, do you plan on being carnivore just for indefinitely? Or are you I float between animal-based and carnivore? Or
here's the thing. I've done animal-based now. So I've done it for a period of 3 months, which I don't know if it's enough time for me, but I experimented with fruit and honey to see what would happen because I was curious if my autoimmune would come back. It didn't at all. And until I piled on the fruit and honey, it seems like everyone has a limit for the carbohydrates they can consume. So when I was doing animal-based, after a long time with carnivore, I was fairly lean and I was looking to bulk up. So I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to throw some carbohydrates in, they might as well be from fruit and honey. They seem like the safest ones, even though some doctors like them, some don't. Let's try it out. I did it for a few weeks, gained a lot of weight very fast. What ended up happening was I was just piling them on, totally piling on carbohydrates, piling on honey. And I look back at Paul's videos, and something that people don't realize about Paul Saladino is great doctor. He talks about a lot of great things, especially holistic wise, which I really like. But he has up to 300 or more grams of total carbohydrates a day. And if you give that to someone who is still insulin resistant, trying to get insulin sensitive, not a good idea. Not a good idea, in my opinion. I see a lot of weight gain happen, and the cravings kept coming back. So what I did was I tried it for 3 months. I gained some body fat. Definitely wasn't ideal for me. The IBS didn't come back until I added way too much. But if I have a little bit, if I have an avocado and some berries or something like that, and if I have one mango a day, unless I really piled it on, I didn't see the IBS coming back. I've experimented with vegetables. If I have a handful of vegetables, IBS immediately in the bathroom all day, immediately feeling like garbage, immediately have a crash. If I have too much fruit, I have the crash. Like I said, I think it comes down to our genetics and what we are able to handle. Also, our activity level is really key in animal-based, is what I don't think Paul talks enough about, is you got to eat your carbohydrates to your activity level if you're going to eat them at all. Now I've gone back to full carnivore. I got leaner again. I feel a little bit better. And what I've concluded is I like the animal-based diet. I think it's a great way of eating if you're a high-performance athlete or you're someone that is very, very active and is not affected by those carbohydrates towards their autoimmune condition. So that's the people that I like to do animal-based with. So if you're younger, like my age, and not saying because you're young you can get away with it, but if you're more active, you might be able to get away with some carbohydrates in your day and not have a problem. But again, what Paul doesn't understand, and what a lot of animal-based people don't understand that I see when they start, is too many carbohydrates. All carbohydrates turn to sugar, and too many carbohydrates of any kind, even fruit or honey, can still cause inflammation. There's no question behind that. You can absolutely go overboard on the fruit and honey. So it's something really to be careful of. When you go meat and fat, you can't go overboard because your brain doesn't let you, but you can absolutely go past it on animal-based. That's what I found.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with you. And I mean, this is from, years in the fitness industry and having multiple coaches, being a coach,
Right.
you name it. Any leeway that you give yourself in the beginning, if you're like, oh, I'll just have some fruit, but you're eating 300 grams of carbs a day and you're going to the gym and walking on the treadmill for 30 minutes, those do not, it isn't necessarily about Xing them out, but I do think that there comes a certain point where you do have to look at carbohydrates as a fuel source and not as to scratch an itch. Right. So if you go have a smash a freaking leg day and you eat a couple hundred, or even eat a couple 100 grams of carbs. Now that's in my case. Of course, I'm on a build and I'm, at 3,500 calories right now.
Hey, I'm 4,000 on Carnivore. I'm not gaining weight.
Yeah, no. And I mean, I essentially usually maximum have 200 grams of carbs a day. And honestly, I've never.
It's very funny what I've seen with my caloric intake and if I gain weight or not on certain foods. I mean, I'm not a big tracker, but I have tracked for periods of time because I was curious. When I started and I was full carnivore, for the first few weeks, I didn't mention this. I should mention this. I gained 20 pounds. Very fast. I was eating up to 7,000 to 8,000 calories a day. This is because I was restricting myself for so long with saturated fat and cutting my calories lower and lower and lower for years and years. I got down to 8% body fat. That's probably the leanest I ever was, probably the leanest I'll ever be. I don't want to ever get that lean again. I felt like garbage. Naturally now I sit around 12 or 13, but I ballooned all the way up to 18, 19% body fat as soon as I started carnivore, because the first thing I saw was you don't have to track your calories. You don't have to count anything. And I saw people piling on butter, eating sticks of butter a day and putting a lot of cheese and a lot of dairy on the foods. Dairy should be used as a garnish if you're someone who wants to lose weight on carnivore or keep a low body fat. Dairy should not be piled on. I find that dairy is meant for us to gain weight. So I didn't listen. I put a ton of butter on top of all my food that I already cooked in a ton of butter. And I just couldn't stop when I got the taste of saturated fat until 6-7 months in. Then I slowly added less dairy and I slowly got more full and the weight came right off. Then I should mention, then I tried the animal-based. The weight came on. I got hungrier because my insulin levels were never spiked like that before. And it led me to eat more meat, more eggs. I'm not even messing with you. Literally I was eating 30 to 40 eggs a day, 2 to 3 pounds of meat a day, easily. I can eat. So that's what I was doing when I first started carnivore. And now it's still a lot, but without the dairy, I just don't gain any weight. It's very hard for me to put weight on. And I never thought I'd be one of those people, but just eating protein and fat without dairy, I can eat as much as I want. I won't gain anything. It's amazing. And if I have the same calories and carbohydrates, I will gain a ton. I will load on the weight and I will load on the fat. It's not just water weight too. You can really see it in my physique. Totally.
Yeah. Do you think that, these are just, and these could be thoughts that I could completely change over time, the deeper I get into this lifestyle, but coming from a bodybuilding industry, when we put on mass, we expect to put on a certain amount of fat as well. Usually when you put on mass or you move the up in scale weight, you have this expectation of this is going to be some mass and this is going to be some fat. And, I can say personally that, during this build, I have, grown in all the right places, for sure, I've probably put on a little body fat, but this is the best build that I've ever had. And I'm, animal based. But it's interesting to hear you say, it's hard for you to put on weight. So would you do the animal based diet, like specifically to put on mass? Or are you like, do you think that you can put on mass doing carnivore?
Oh, you can put on master and carnivore. No, no question. I have
Yeah.
seen this proven over and over again by a lot of bodybuilders. I mean, you have Rob Sykes, who's the keto bodybuilder. He's freaking huge. Like he has been keto for I don't know 6 years now. There's no doubt you can put on mass. When you are talking about building muscle, and I say this as a trainer, you need 0 grams of carbohydrates. They can absolutely help to some degree, but 99.9% of people out there will be satisfied with the amount of mass they can put on as a carnivore. If we're talking like for competition bodybuilding, yeah, I would recommend your pre-workout and your post-workout have a little bit of honey. I think that would be necessary. I don't promote bodybuilding. I promote building muscle and losing fat, getting to a really good shape, but not anything that's, how do I say this, unrealistic and too low of a body fat to maintain. Something that's sustainable. So for me, I sit around 12% body fat on carnivore, which most people would be more than thrilled with if they can see their six pack all day long. They don't need to get more than that. So as far as building muscle goes, let me clarify this. You need four things. You need protein, and the protein does really matter. So when you go carnivore, you're only getting the bioavailable animal protein that you need. So you're getting all the right forms with all the right amino acids in the right orders. So when you're getting stuff like eggs, red meat, shrimp, obviously there's chicken, but I think that chicken's the most BS one out there. I like red meat more.
If it's not bigger than me, I'm not going to eat it.
I mean, I'll enjoy chicken wings here and then, but like, I have red meat every day. Like, nothing compares to the taste. But for building muscle too, red meat's up there. It's one of the top. Beef isolate is one of the top. The protein in red meat, and also the eggs are almost essential for building muscle as well. You can get all the right foods in carnivore. So it's about one, the protein. Two is the energy. You can absolutely use fat for energy on carnivore. And you can build muscle on carnivore with fats. No doubt about it. I've done it. I've seen clients do it. It is a total myth that you need carbohydrates. Third is water. You need some sort of amount of water per day at least to build muscle. And then the fourth would be a stimulus. So whether it be resistance training, strength training, whatever you want to do to essentially grow the muscle fibers. So those are the four you need. None of them require any carbohydrates. For your most optimal bodybuilder, yes, there is a point where backloading some carbohydrates can be important for them. For 99% of people that see this lifestyle and they're like, well, I want to get in really good shape, I want to build a lot of muscle and lose a lot of fat, you can do it on carnivore. No doubt. No doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if you don't have competitive physique goals, just to clarify here, if you do not have competitive physique goals, keto or carnivore, preferably carnivore.
You and I can probably argue too that, being, a composition physique is not very healthy. And, we're all about our health. So I would never promote that anyway. I don't want anybody looking like a bodybuilder, because most of the time they have to take something that's, not going to lead them to a healthy lifestyle. So I would never promote that. But
yeah, absolutely. Honestly, coming off the, bodybuilding world and train, just kind of leaving that industry completely. Eventually would I love to compete? Yes. But am I going to do it regularly? No. Why? For exactly the reason that you just said. It is completely, and I'm going to look at you guys when I say this, completely ridiculous to keep that amount of body fat, especially as a woman. To stay at such a lean physique. Yeah. There's just a certain amount of body fat that we have to have. For hormonal health and, inflammation and everything else. If your body doesn't have what it needs, it's not gonna, work properly, period. So, yeah.
you can ask any bodybuilder how they feel on stage day. They'll all tell you they feel like absolute garbage. And, there's a reason why as soon as they're done, they gain 20, 30 pounds in a few days or weeks after their competition. It's not sustainable. Yeah. It's not meant to be a long-term approach. And if you're going to do it, as long as you know it's unhealthy, fine. That's what I like to say. If you want to have fun with it, as long as you know it's not good for you, whatever. It's like alcohol. Like, it's not good for you, but it's your choice. So that's how I like to treat bodybuilding, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, I know a few, um, I used to shout out to Team Michelle and JJ. I used to be coached by Michelle McDonald. And, so I know a lot of elite level, bodybuilders. And when they shoot content and stuff, they shoot so much content around the year or in the year around when they're the leanest so that they have content for the rest of the year. So, if you're looking at a social media page, guys, please, that is probably, especially if it's a bodybuilder, not an accurate description of even what they are currently, what their current physique is. So they do not stay that lean all year round. And honestly, the best ones that I know are super transparent about that. Like Hattie Boydell, for example. She gets on and she's like, I look like this 90% of the year, and I look like this 10% of the year. So it's yeah.
Cool. I think they're cool. I like those type of videos where those people from the gym like that post, because when you're on social media, you're posting your best content. You're not going to post when you look like shit. So it's nice to see some of those realistic physiques, because you're right. At the end of the day, we do need a certain percentage of body fat to live. So definitely.
Yeah. And when you talk about women as well, and I mean, you could probably feed into this too, when we have cellulite, right? That's essentially a fat cell with toxins, is sort of what causes like the cellulite look. And if you can think about the amount of years that it takes for you to develop that many toxins in your body, you can go ahead and assume that it's going to take the same amount of years. Not realistically, realistically, it may take you a few years, 5 years, 10 years. But once you start cleaning up your diet, cleaning up your lifestyle, it's going to take you almost an equivalent amount of time to really, like, let's say, get rid of cellulite. Like, there is no quick fix, but it's just something to show that it is completely, it's normal to have cellulite if you have been eating a standard American diet for the last 20 years, and then you can't expect it to go away overnight.
Are you a collagen girl? Do you do collagen?
So, I try to do a lot of bone broth and, stuff that's super collagenous, but I don't necessarily just take collagen.
Good for you. I like that answer. That's what I do as well. I know I had a lot of, I actually got pretty lucky. I didn't have that much loose skin when I lost the weight and, that many stretch marks. But for people that want to tighten their skin, I mean, having collagen every day is a must, and not in the wrong form, please. There's people will try and sell you anything in a powder or shake. And, I don't take any supplements. I'm a big believer in a no supplement life. Not even organs, as I do them raw now, like straight up. I used to do that until I really got into it. And collagen's found in food and a lot of carnivore friendly food as well, or animal based food. So when you have the gristle on a steak, that's a line of pure collagen right there. Eat that. When you have the gristle on a chicken wing, that little chewy stringy part, that's pure collagen. There's a membrane between the egg shell and the egg white, and it's a layer. If you've ever seen it, when you crack an egg open, it's this little thin layer around the whole egg. That's a pure collagen membrane. Those are essential for your skin, hair, and nails. You don't necessarily have to supplement anything for them as long as you're getting an adequate amount of meat, fish, eggs in your diet. So again, over time, like I said, like you said, and the same thing's true with weight loss and weight gain is however long it took you to lose it, it might take even longer to gain it back. It might take even longer to keep it off. I mean, it's all a time frame. And when I was restricting myself to calories, when you start carnivore or when you start animal based, and everybody says you don't really need to count calories, and you stop doing it. If you've been restricting yourself, eating these big salads, lowering your calories every day for a long period of time, the longer that period of time is, the longer it's going to take your satiety signals to adjust. So it all comes from how long were you doing something bad for this perspective, for this long of time? That's how long it's going to take you to fix it, at least. And the collagen thing, totally. Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. You said something about time that just makes me curious. Time is such a tool, but it's so valuable. Like we only have a little bit of time. And I think that it's amazing how people get in such a rush to get from A to Z, which I'm sure you experienced during that time.
If you're a trainer, all of your clients, they're like, so how much weight am I going to lose in 10 weeks with you? So when is this fat under my arm going to go away? So when am I going to get to my weight goal? How long is it going to take? every day. Every day I get the same questions every day. I wish it was as easy as plugging into a stupid macro calculator and doing that. It's not. The human body doesn't work that way. The weight will come off when it comes off if you make it a lifestyle. You won't realize it. It will just come off. And it's the same thing I say with carnivore, with animal-based, with keto. If you are on one of these diets for long enough and you're eating a natural human diet, something that human beings will naturally eat and they will naturally get full to, you will naturally look like you're supposed to look. So you will be lean eventually. No matter how long that takes, as long as you follow this way of eating and don't deviate from it, you'll do very well. If you go back to the sugar route and you're addicted to sugar, fortunately, you're going to look like you're addicted to sugar. So
Yeah.
that's what I have to say is there's no amount of time. Don't question it. Just do and keep doing and follow the right way. And eventually it will come off what you're trying to lose. Most people is weight loss. Most people come to me, I want to lose weight. I want to gain muscle. What do? Animal protein. Base your diet, base your carbohydrates. You can have any on your activity level. Otherwise, if you have a lot of weight to lose, you can use your fat stores. You can go to keto or carnivore. And most of the time, they don't like that answer. Most of the time, they'll go to the other trainer who's like, just eat 1,600 calories a day, whatever you want, you lose weight. At the end of the day, you got to think of it. A gym's a business, right? So a gym wants people to come back. So what's the easy? Weight Watchers, they're a business too. If Weight Watchers actually work, they'd be out of business by now, just so you know. But they want their clients to come back. They want their customers to come back. So what's the easiest way? Is to calorically restrict them. So eventually when they break out and they give up and they binge, they think it's their fault that they couldn't stick to grilled chicken and salads all day long. So they're a business. They want you to come back. Ketogenic diets are meant for the long term. They're meant to be a commitment. Animal-based diets, same thing. It's a commitment. It's a long-term thing. You don't just do it for a short period of time. It becomes part of your daily life. When I wake up and I eat my eggs every morning, I don't think about it. I don't really think about it. It's just part of my day now. When I was addicted to sugar the first few weeks, it's going to be damn hard no matter what kind of diet you try. As long as it doesn't have any processed sugar, it's going to be very difficult. But there's a lot of ways to get past that sugar addiction.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm with you. I mean, you really, and I tell people all the time, I'm like, just give it a week. Like, if you can just give it a week, like, you will start to feel so much better. I mean, there was a point whenever I was so addicted to sugar that I would have, like, I tried everything, you know, and I think sugar addiction and binge eating go hand in hand.
Absolutely. That's what I say. I tell people, if you cannot get that physically big without being addicted to sugar, there's no way around it. You can't get that big with protein and fat. You can gain a little bit of body fat. Good luck getting obese because it doesn't happen. It's not going to happen.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. And that leads me to another point is, you know, I think you can agree if anybody's on this journey, right? Like, even if you are a carnivore and you are on the scales and they are not budging, you're staying the same. Like, I just want you to take a freaking picture of yourself. You know, I think one of the most important things that I've learned in my journey through like fitness is when I started bodybuilding, my coach was like, I want weekly check-ins, right? And she was like, but I want daily photos. I want photos of you every single day. That was so uncomfortable for me to get in front of a camera. But now looking back, it's like I can go back to the last time I was 185 and put it now to my 185, and they're completely different bodies.
Yep.
So, you know, I think it's really important to note, like, if you are on a fitness journey at all, it is so important. No matter how you feel, these pictures can stay private, right? You do not have to share them with anyone, but to have something to look back on and compare to what you are now. So even if the scale is not budging, but you're going ham at the gym, I promise you're going to see a lot of difference in your physique.
I agree. I think the scale has little to no meaning. I think the mirror is what truly determines your physique, because at the end of the day, when I was 160, extremely skinny fat, I was at a lower weight than I am now at 175. But oh my goodness, it's taken me 3 years to put on muscle mass, and I've never been happier. And a few years ago, if I look back and I was like, oh my God, you're 175 now, I'm going to think, what's happening? You're going in the wrong direction. No, it's all muscle. Like, it's really hard to gain fat in a whole foods based diet. You can try it. It's really freaking difficult. But what's going to happen is, like I said, when you go carnivore and you want to build muscle, you need animal protein. So if that's all you're getting, and if animal based too, you're getting all animal protein and fat. There's no other protein from the fruits that you're getting that are going to help you build muscle. Same thing with the honey. So I mean, it's carnivore with fruit and honey at the end of the day. So you're building muscle off that animal protein. And my clients come to me and they'll often be like, I have a lot of women clients that are like, I just want to lose these last 10, 15 pounds. That's all they say. It's the same thing every client. I want to lose 10, 15 pounds. That's all I want to lose. How long is it going to take me? And I'm like, let's strength train. Let's do it a few times a week. Let's eat each body part 2 times a week. Let's do it with intensity. And after 5 pounds of weight loss, you're going to come to me and you're going to be like, I don't want to lose any more weight. I like the way I look. Like, I don't want to lose any more. Because when you build muscle, your physique, as you said, can get completely different. You can do a whole 180 and gain weight and actually like your physique better. So that's why I'm pretty against the scale if you're eating one of these kind of diets. And also the thing is too, if you start animal-based, if you start carnivore and you gain some weight, all of that's necessary. All of it's healthy weight, especially when you're eating from the right foods, especially if you're restricting yourself as well. When you restrict yourself and you finally get a taste of real food, because a lot of people restrict themselves from red meat, they eat a lot of salads, and that's kind of the lifestyle that most people are in today, unfortunately. And when they finally stop, they commit themselves to this diet, and you gain weight. That's weight that was necessary to gain. It's important for you to gain, and people can't get past that. As soon as they see the scale go up, they quit. And I didn't. After those 20 pounds went up, I'm like, eventually, my satiety signals go back to normal, eating this real food. My brain will finally be full. I'll slow down my eating. And that's exactly what happened. And it's what happens to everyone. It just takes time. So if you gain some weight when you start, do not be afraid. The most important thing is to eat until you're satiated.
Yeah. No, I would definitely agree. And just to add on to that, a little bit of personal experience so you guys are aware. I mean, so, I'm currently on a build, as I've said. But, I'm up 20 pounds from my original weight, maybe 23 pounds. And honestly, I've never loved my body so much. Like I'm sitting at 205 and I feel great. I feel like I look great. And I just never listened to the scale, right? If you compared my 205 to my 180 3 years ago, I look better now than I ever have.
How tall are you?
I'm 6 foot.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. I'm man-sized.
No, that's crazy stuff. That's very impressive. Especially if you're able to keep a lot of it as muscle, that's super impressive stuff. And other people would look at you and be like, what, you're 205? You're not 205. And then you step on the scale and you realize that, hey, 1 pound of muscle and 1 pound of fat both weigh a pound. People don't get this. But muscle keeps you dense and full and compact. And fat keeps you larger and taking up more space. So that's all it comes down to. It really is. It's muscle, especially if you could see it in your physique right away. I'm actually not a fan of the bulk and cut anymore. I'm not even for it anymore. I think that naturally you will slowly maintain your body weight and slowly build muscle on carnivore over time. So that is my approach. I am different than you. I don't go through the bulk cutting phases. As of right now, I like staying lean. I like staying where I'm at. I'm slowly growing just by adequate amounts of animal protein. When I think it comes down to muscle growth, I think that the energy you get from fat is more than enough. You don't have to bulk and cut anymore, especially on carnivore. And I've gone pretty against the whole bulking and cutting cycle. I don't think it's very healthy. And I just see myself slowly growing over time and staying lean. So I prefer to do it that way.
Yeah, no. And I mean, I think that's, such an important piece of just that everybody needs to know is everyone has personal preferences, right? And everyone is on their own journey. And, just because you don't like it doesn't mean I don't have to like it. And just because I don't like it doesn't mean you have to like it. And, I just think it's really important to touch on that everybody is so different. And I'm learning so much from you right now. And maybe I don't disagree. I've been carnivore, but I have, run into thyroid issues while I was carnivore. I don't think I gave my body enough time to heal with carbohydrates before I started.
How long were you carnivore for?
I did it about, I would say 60 days before, just clumps of hair started falling out.
You need some more, and you probably need to eat more protein and fat. You're probably under eating. That's what I can assume. If your hair starts to fall out, that's that you're not eating enough.
Well, it's a telltale sign. I mean, I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism many years ago, and that's kind of sort of been part of my whole journey. So, I know what the signs are, and that's one of them. Cold chills, hair falling out, and on animal based, I did great. Right, like I was off my meds, stayed off of them, used no supplementation whatsoever. And then when I went carnivore, it did sort of, just go downhill. Of course, now looking back, I probably wasn't eating enough. But I mean, still, I was probably eating 2,800 calories, which should have been ample. So, I mean, but there are things that I could definitely tweak
Do
and try again.
I don't know. My viewpoint on calories has drastically changed, like drastically. Like I don't believe anyone necessarily needs to count them ever if you're eating the right foods. I like to use cues instead of telling people to eat a specific amount. I think it's a lot better, and I think it's a lot healthier. My whole thing is no one's going to count calories for the rest of their life. It's just not going to be a thing. So
Absolutely.
eventually you're going to have to follow some sort of way of eating that keeps you satiated, because at the end of the day, if anyone wants to remain somewhat lean and somewhat healthy in shape, they have to be full all day long. That's why these diets work so well, because they keep you full. Now, of course, if you pile on the carbohydrates on animal base, you're going to be hungry. That's it. You're going to stimulate insulin a lot on animal base. And this is why I recommend it for someone who wants to gain weight, or someone who doesn't have an autoimmune, who's very, very active and can handle that carbohydrate load. But there is animal-based keto. That's a thing. You can do an avocado and some berries a day and feel amazing on animal-based. Still get the electrolytes that you need, even though I can argue that doesn't matter too much long-term carnivores. But my whole thing about calories is everyone thinks of calories as this unit of energy and that all calories are equal. And I think that's the biggest problem with the word calorie now, is it's almost turned into a word that 1 calorie of something gives you the same energy as another calorie of something. So I always use this example on my podcast, and I say 100 calories of salmon, 100 calories of Oreos will make you look, feel, and just live a completely different way. Like you will absolutely not achieve a decent physique at all if you're portioning out Oreos. I've done it. I've portioned out carbohydrate foods and I got skinny fat because I wasn't eating adequate amounts of protein. I got mental issues. I wasn't eating a lot of fat. I felt like crap. So those are two essential. And then you go to carbohydrates and you realize these will give you electrolytes from fruit. These will give you, these will give you energy, but in my opinion, fat does it better. And fat does it better in every way for most people. It's very rare I see a person really thrive on carbohydrates past their normal limit. For some people, 30 grams, some people 100 grams. For some people, if they have more than that, I see the energy crashes come back. I don't see the constant state of focus and clarity come back. And that's what I've personally experienced with me and my clients. But the whole word calories has been taken out of control. I don't know. It's been totally framed as the universal code of weight loss, and it's technically not. The weight loss comes from nutrient-dense foods. Weight loss comes from filling yourself up. Short-term weight loss, yeah. If you want to lose weight and you want to lose muscle and you want to lose bone density and tissue, lower your calories as low as you can. You lose all of that. I promise. So
Yeah.
if you want to lose mental fatigue, lower your calories, lower the fat. Totally, it'll work. Lower the carbohydrates, increase healthy fats and protein. You will naturally feel satiated when you eat the right foods. And that's all it comes down to. So like I said, I've tracked for a week or two on each of these diets to see what I was eating, where I was at. And I eat very, very similar stuff each day. So to give you an example, everybody texts me about my macros. So I'll tell you my macros last night. By the way, I sit at 175. I can't gain a single pound. I stay there. No matter how much meat and eggs I eat, and I eat till I'm stuffed, I eat around 2 times a day. My first meal yesterday was 13 eggs and 4 slices of bacon. Then I had, that was at 12 o'clock. And then at 5 o'clock, I had my dinner, which was 2 pounds of grass-fed ground beef cooked in a lot of beef tallow, topped with some shrimp. So my macros for the day were 3,600 calories, 288 grams of protein, 0 carbs, 266 grams of fat. And I've also had an animal-based comparison, which I could show you, which is this one, where I was eating 5,500 calories with fruit and honey in between. I was eating 2.5 pounds of meat. I was eating 17 eggs a day, roughly. I mean, I was just eating more. I was eating a lot more. It forced me to eat more and it forced me to gain weight. So that's what the insulin spike did to me. So it will too many carbohydrates, the issue I found was it just takes you out of your natural hunger signals. It disrupts a lot of your hunger cues, which is something I never hear Paul Saladino talk about ever, which I just think is so, so important to someone who's came from binge eating and fear of gaining body fat and all of this other stuff.
But yes, I think we can all universally agree that Paul's target audience is not beginners.
Right.
You know, I mean, you know, and I want to clarify, even from this conversation, like we're talking, both of us, and, you know, I would say both of us from a more advanced level vision, right? Like we don't have an eating disorder anymore. You know, we can clearly eat, you know, like we can, let's say, experiment with carbohydrates and be fine, right? We can get on the scale and we have zero attachment to what it says. Right. You know, we can count calories and we're literally doing it for reference.
I have to mention something too. I forgot to mention is when I was eating my standard American way of eating, which was one meal a day. If I ate more than 2,000 calories, I would gain a ton of weight very, very fast. And now I get away with 4,000 calories. It just goes to show what I really mean to say is the calories you put in your body drastically affect the calories out. Hormones drastically affect the calories out. People don't talk about this. They just think, oh, calories in, calories out. That's it. But if you put 2,000 calories of salmon in your body, you might output naturally 3,000 calories. If you put 2,000 calories of Oreos, you might feel sluggish and then output only 1,500 calories naturally. So the way to do it is like you and I do, food quality, nutrient-dense foods. That was my point there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And I could not agree more. I think that that's honestly the most important part. Is just even getting in nutrient-dense foods, no matter what you eat, whether you're carnivore, whether you're animal-based, you know, just always alluding towards more nutrient-dense options.
I agree. I like animal-based. I think that sometimes people take the carbohydrates too far, and people with an issue before that had binge eating might lead to some cravings, and people that have an autoimmune might lead to it coming back. But other than that, if you are highly active and you want to do animal-based, do it. I'm for it.
Yeah.
There, of course, there's certain situations where people can fit in where they do all three and they experiment with carnivore, keto, and animal-based, and they they'll come across either one because everyone's totally different. And although I have to say, I found some really, really good results with low carb and people having results with low carb and high fat. So. Also, what I wanted to actually hear your thoughts on this, which I'm definitely going to ask on my podcast. But what's your view on the Randall cycle?
You know, I feel the most awful when I have like a meal that has a heavy amount of fat and a heavy amount of carbs. Honestly, I try to avoid eating meals that are heavy in those two. It's either, you know, a higher carb meal and higher protein. Mm-hmm. With very minimal fat, or I utilize, you know, like a high fat, high protein meal. Obviously, protein's always high for me.
Do you plan your carbs before and after your workouts?
Yeah.
Good. All right. Done. So I have very similar a stance on this as well. And I, for one, just never like to go low fat. So all my meals are high fat. Therefore, I'm low carb.
Yeah. Well, when I say lower fat, I mean, you know, like 30, 40 grams. you know?
Okay. All right. Good. But yeah, so the Randall cycle is a thing. I'm a big believer in it. And Paul has different views on this for sure. But when you eat fats and you eat carbohydrates, your body prioritizes the glucose first. And it won't burn the fats off until the glucose is burned. So for some people, that's what I mean by that. If you pile on the butter and the fruit, you're going to gain weight like that. There's no way around that. So you got to be careful. You got to be careful, especially if you're coming to animal-based for weight loss. You have to be careful.
Yeah. No, I would definitely on the animal-based diet say to like prioritize one or the other at individual meals, but you can still incorporate it, you know, pre and post workout, you know, that's
bottom line, pre and post workout. That's when your carbohydrates should be. They're unless you're really looking to put on some fat and some weight and like you're really skinny and you have to put on weight, that's when you start snacking on fruit like at night or like stuff like that. That's when you should start doing that. That's what I found for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I'm glad you brought that up. It's a great question. You gave some great advice and tidbits. This was definitely a very different podcast than what I'm used to doing,
Oh,
but it
okay.
was super informative. No, I mean, I'm really glad. I think a lot of people don't speak deep enough into what it's like to be a beginner and to really have to go through these cycles and stages where you're just like constantly questioning everything and trying to figure it out. And there are really just practical steps that I know work for me that I similarly work for you, whereas in other areas, or like particularly bodybuilding coaches, they're like eat 6 times a day, and you need to eat balanced carbs, fat, and protein all day, and it just doesn't work.
That's what they're taught. That's what they're taught from generations above them. It's the same thing as nutritionists. It's the same thing as Weight Watchers. Hey, get my little snack bar so you're not hungry in between meals. Like, no, you don't want to spike insulin. Have bigger meals, and they'll tell you on purpose, have smaller meals because it keeps you coming back. It's a business, like I said, and they're all under the FDA, and all the nutrition schools, dietitian schools, they're all under the FDA. They're all under agriculture, big pharma, big government. They run everything. They are very intact with those processed food companies that sit on the shelves, and they run everything too. General Mills sponsors a lot of teams. Kellogg sponsors a lot of people. Mars, all these people, they're in control of a lot. And I think it's our duty to spread this message that we've learned that real food actually freaking heals our bodies and our minds. So if there's one thing you could take from that, definitely take that, is just prioritize real food, eat till you're full, and then reevaluate and do it again, and you'll be great.
Yeah, no, I think that's the perfect last words and last piece of advice. So thank you so much for coming on today. That was awesome. I mean, I think that's super informative and something a lot of people need to hear.
I'm so glad to spread my message. So thank you for having me again.
Thank you for listening. Until we meet again.